I didn't think much of it at first. Just another Tuesday morning. Sun creeping through the blinds, coffee brewing, the usual hum of suburbia outside. My biggest concern that day? Whether the trash truck would come before or after I left for work. Then I saw it, that old silver sedan, parked sideways, right across my driveway. At first, I thought maybe it was a delivery, or someone lost. But when I stepped out and saw the car was off, no one inside, and the driver's door locked, my stomach turned. Whoever it was, they'd blocked me in on purpose. Now, if you've never lived in a neighborhood with an HOA, you might not understand how fast a small problem can explode into a full-blown neighborhood war. Ours was ruled by one person, Karen. Not her real name, but she lived up to it perfectly. Clipboard, visor, and that permanent look of disapproval that could curdle milk. For years, she'd nitpick everything from the height of my grass to the color of my mailbox. But this was new. So I walked over to take a closer look. The silver sedan was spotless, not a speck of dust. A fresh HOA parking notice flapped under the windshield wiper, my address written in Sharpie. That's when I noticed the small camera lens, half hidden under the side mirror, recording. My pulse spiked. Someone wasn't just blocking me in. They were setting me up. I called out, "Hello? Anyone here?" Nothing. Just the sound of sprinklers and a distant lawnmower. I took a photo of the car and the notice just in case and went back inside to check my security cams. Sure enough, about 20 minutes earlier, Karen herself had pulled up in her golf cart, taped that notice, and drove off. But she didn't leave alone. 2 uniformed men had followed in another car. Not police private security. HOA security. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a simple parking issue. This was a move, deliberate, public, and humiliating. She wanted the neighbors to see that I'd broken another rule. For what? Parking too close to the curb last week? Having my nephew's truck in the driveway? I could already hear the next HOA meeting in my head. Mr. Harris continues to disregard neighborhood regulations. I wasn't about to let that happen. So I grabbed my phone, walked outside, and started recording. "Hey, Karen. Nice parking job," I shouted toward her house across the cul-de-sac. A few blinds twitched. One door opened halfway. Neighbors pretending not to stare. Then the sound of tires. A white SUV pulled up behind the silver sedan, the HOA emblem glinting on the door. The driver stepped out, a man in a cheap suit, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Harris," he said, as if reading from a script, "you've been cited for unauthorized obstruction of common property." I laughed. "You mean your car blocking my driveway?" He ignored me. Per Section 14B of the Neighborhood Code, you're required to appear before the board this evening. I kept recording. Section 14B? You mean the one that says no vehicle may obstruct another's exit without prior consent? Congratulations, you just violated it. The man didn't flinch. Just looked at the clipboard again. Failure to appear will result in fines and potential towing. Then he got back in his SUV and drove off. I stood there, staring at that empty spot where his taillights disappeared, the sound of my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. This wasn't about parking. It was about power. And I was done playing by their rules. I walked up to the sedan, reached under the mirror, and yanked the tiny camera loose. The red light blinked once before going dark. "Let's see how you like it when I'm the one watching," I muttered. By the time I got back inside, my phone was buzzing an HOA alert email. "Enot, I see EMEINBERINV IOLAAEIAAAPIM EEYENES. My name, my address. Sent to the entire neighborhood. That's when I realized this wasn't a warning. It was a message. Karen wanted everyone to see me as the problem. But she had no idea what she'd just started. Because this time, I had evidence. And I wasn't going to just fight back, I was going to expose everything. That night, the whole neighborhood felt different. Usually, evenings on Maple Ridge were quiet porch lights, glowing, dogs barking, someone's TV faintly echoing through open windows. But after that email blast, people looked at me differently. When I walked out to get the mail, Mrs. Douglas from across the street, the one who used to wave every morning, quickly turned her head and pretended to fumble with her trash can. Her husband gave me that polite half-smile, the kind people use when they don't want to pick a side. That's when I knew Karen's message had landed exactly how she wanted. I'd been branded the troublemaker. Later that evening, my phone pinged again, another HOA alert. Emergency board meeting, mandatory attendance subject, repeated violations by resident 14. That was me. The timing wasn't random. The HOA usually gave days of notice before meetings, but this was different. This was a trap. So I grabbed the folder I'd been keeping for years, every letter, every photo, every ridiculous violation they'd sent me since 2018. Everything from grass too tall to holiday lights, not removed by January 3G. If they wanted a fight, I was coming prepared. When I got to the clubhouse, the parking lot was full more cars than I'd ever seen at an HOA meeting. Some folks were standing near the doors, whispering. Others recorded on their phones, waiting for the drama. And there she was, Karen, standing at the front with her arms folded, smiling like a queen who'd just conquered her favorite enemy. "Good evening, everyone," she said, voice dripping with fake sweetness. "We're here to discuss ongoing violations by Mr. Harris." She glanced at me, then at the crowd. As you all saw in today's notice, there has been a pattern of non-compliance. Parking, landscaping, unauthorized property modifications. I raised my hand. Hold on. Unauthorized what? Her smile widened. Your security cameras. That's when I felt the room shift. Half the neighbors turned toward me like I'd been caught committing some felony. But what she said next made my jaw tighten. Per new HOA Resolution 21C, Karen continued, external surveillance systems must be registered with the board for safety and privacy reasons. Mr. Harris has refused. I stood up. Refused? You passed that rule last week. My cameras were installed 5 years ago. The man from earlier, the one with the clipboard, spoke next. Mr. Harris, the rule applies retroactively. Retroactively? They'd changed the rules just to target me. The crowd murmured. One man said, "That doesn't sound legal." Another whispered, "She's overstepping again." Karen banged her little gavel. "Order." I leaned forward. You sent that email to every resident. You accused me of blocking my own driveway. And now you're trying to fine me for security cameras? Is that what this is about? Her smile vanished. This is about order, Mr. Harris. About community standards. We all follow the same rules. I took out my phone and pressed play. The room went quiet. On screen, a video clip from my driveway cam. Karen parking that silver sedan herself. The timestamp clear as daylight. You could hear gasps around the room. Looks like someone doesn't follow the rules, I said. Karen froze. For a second, her face went pale. Then she said, that video could be doctored. I laughed. Sure. Because I've been sitting around learning Hollywood editing just to fake your little golf cart joyride? The crowd started murmuring louder now, this time against her. But then she played her next move. If that's your footage, Karen said, then you just admitted to illegally recording on community property. That's a privacy violation. My stomach dropped. She'd flipped it, turned my proof into another charge. You'll be hearing from our legal counsel, she added. Meeting adjourned. She slammed the gavel. Just like that over. As I walked out, people avoided eye contact. A few whispered good luck under their breath. But most just stayed silent. When I got home, there was already a notice taped to my door. Pending legal review. All security devices must be removed within 48 hours. I looked up at the cameras on my porch, the same ones that had caught her red-handed, and realized the game wasn't over. This wasn't a neighborhood dispute anymore. It was a full-scale campaign. She had the HOA. She had their so-called legal counsel, and now she was coming for my property. But what she didn't know was that I'd already backed everything up, multiple drives, cloud copies, and off-site storage. If she wanted to play dirty, I was ready to play smarter. And the next move? That would be mine.b why morning my phone was blowing up. Missed calls, emails, HOA messages, even a voicemail from a number labeled Community Legal Affairs. I pressed play. Mr. Harris, a woman's voice said, calm but cold, this is Attorney Mikkel Grant, representing the Maple Ridge Homeowners Association. We've received reports that your surveillance recordings violate privacy clauses. You're advised to remove all cameras within 48 hours to avoid fines or escalation. Click. Escalation. That was their favorite word. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the notice still taped to my front door through the window. Sunlight hit the HOA logo like a badge of control. I knew this wasn't just about cameras. It was about shutting me up. For years, Karen and her board had bullied residents, shaming people over fence colors, driveway stains, even kids' bicycles left out. Most folks just paid the fines and moved on, but I'd called them out. I'd pushed back, and now they wanted to make me an example. Fine, let's play. I started digging, pulled out old HOA documents, bylaws, meeting minutes, all the stuff most people never read. Buried in the legal language, I found something interesting. Any rule or resolution enacted without full resident voting approval cannot be enforced with financial penalties. And guess what? Resolution 21, see the new camera registration rule, had been passed in a closed board meeting. No vote. No notice. That was strike one. I took a photo of the clause, highlighted it, and emailed it to myself, to my lawyer friend, and just for fun, to the HOA's official inbox with the subject line, UNA UTHORRZZ DNFOREM TAEACAESC. If Karen wanted a legal fight, she was about to get one. But I didn't stop there. I drove down to the county records office, asked for public property maps and HOA registration filings. That's when the clerk, an older guy with glasses hanging on his nose, looked up and said, "You're from Maple Ridge." "You folks again, huh?" I raised an eyebrow. "Why?" He sighed. "You're not the first complaint we've had. Couple of residents already filed grievances over selective enforcement. Something about a board member's son running unapproved landscaping jobs. Selective enforcement. Nepotism. Karen's fingerprints all over it." I thanked him, grabbed the paperwork, and on my way out, one line caught my eye on the county filing. HOA license renewal, pending review, missing compliance audit. In other words, the HOA itself wasn't even legally valid until that audit cleared. I grinned. Strike two. Back home, I drafted an official letter not as some angry neighbor, but formatted like a legal notice. Bold header, citations, the works. Subject, immediate cease and desist of invalid enforcement action. To Maple Ridge HOA Board. Pursuant to County Ordinance 482.3 and HOA Charter Section 7B, any enforcement under Resolution 21C is suspended pending proper resident ratification. Continued action constitutes harassment under Title IV Sec. 12 of the Property Code. I hit print, signed it, mailed a physical copy. Then, just to make sure they saw it, posted it publicly in the neighborhood Facebook group, the same one where Karen loved to post her reminders about lawn length. Within minutes, comments started pouring in. Wait, they can't fine us without a vote? I knew that rule wasn't official. Following this thread, by evening, the post had more than 50 likes and dozens of residents tagging each other. Karen hadn't responded yet, but I knew she'd seen it. Then, around 8 p.m., my security app pinged, front door motion detected. I opened the live feed. Two men in dark polos, the same HOA security from before, were standing on my porch, clipboard in hand. One of them taped a bright yellow paper to my door. The camera zoomed just enough for me to read it. Notice of legal action pending civil complaint. They looked straight into the lens before walking away. I stepped outside seconds later, but they were already gone. The notice claimed I was in violation of defamation and interference with HOA operations. Defamation, because I told the truth. That's when the fear crept in. I'd poked the hornet's nest, and now it was awake. But fear turned into something sharper, focused. If they wanted to drag me into court, fine. I'd bring everything: the videos, the documents, the illegal filings. I wasn't just fighting back anymore. I was building a case. The next morning, I called a lawyer, a real one this time, and when I told him what was happening, he chuckled. "Sounds like they overplayed their hand," he said. "Send me everything. We'll file a countersuit before they even realize what hit them." Finally, someone who saw through it. As I emailed him the files, one thought ran through my mind. Karen thought she could bury me under paperwork. But soon, she'd realize she'd just handed me the shovel.b. Why, the next week, something had shifted, not just in me, but in the whole neighborhood. The first clue came on Tuesday morning. I stepped outside to grab the mail and found 3 envelopes in my box, not bills, not notices, but handwritten letters. The first one said, "Mr. Harris, I saw your post online. Thank you for standing up to them. I've been scared to speak out for years." The second was from the Johnsons, the couple who had lived 2 doors down for 20 years. They fined us for a garden hose left out overnight. $150. You're not the only one they've bullied. And the third was just a single sentence, no signature. "We're with you. Keep recording." That's when I realized people were paying attention now. Karen's campaign to isolate me had backfired. Instead of fear, she'd stirred something stronger: unity. And for the first time, I wasn't the only voice in the room. One man said, "They made me repaint my fence twice, 2 different colors, because she changed the standard." Another woman added, "She fines me for weeds, but her son's truck is parked in front of the hydrant every weekend." We started organizing right there on the park bench, making copies, sharing emails, setting up a group chat. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every person she'd ever intimidated. By that night, the Maple Ridge Neighbors Group had 42 members. Within 2 days, over 100. Karen had ruled through silence for years. But now, the silence was broken. Of course, it didn't take long for her to notice. On Thursday morning, I woke to find my Facebook post, the one that started it all, had disappeared. Deleted by the group admin. A message followed. "This group has been temporarily suspended for review by the HOA board." And below that, a new post appeared. Reminder: HOA communications must go through official channels. Unapproved discussions spread misinformation. Misinformation. That word, their favorite shield. But this time, the neighbors weren't having it. People started posting screenshots of the deleted group, re-uploading them in public forums. One resident, a retired IT guy, even hosted a community meeting at his house, not official, but open to everyone. When I arrived, there were folding chairs lined up in the driveway, coffee cups on the table, and nearly 60 people sitting quietly as Lisa stood in front of them, reading from a list of grievances. She wasn't yelling. She didn't need to. The truth spoke for itself. When she finished, she looked at me and said, "Tell them about the audit." So I did. I showed the documents, explained how the HOA's license was pending renewal, and that without that audit, all fines were legally unenforceable. Gasps, murmurs, people shaking their heads. One man stood up and said, "So all those fines we paid?" I nodded. Could be refundable. And that's when the energy in the room changed. You could feel it, that electric charge when fear turns into courage. Someone shouted, "We need to vote them out." Applause followed. We formed a plan right there, petition signatures, a public audit request, and a demand for an emergency election. By the time I got home that night, my phone was buzzing non-stop messages, screenshots, new group invites. The movement was spreading faster than Karen could delete it. But victory never comes without backlash. The next morning, my lawn had been vandalized, my mailbox torn open, a bright red sticker slapped on the post. UNDERISTIGITIONHOAVIOLATION 27. No explanation. No reason. Just intimidation. I took a picture, posted it online with the caption, "If this is how they treat residents who speak up, imagine what they do when no one's watching." The post went viral, locally hundreds of shares, even a few calls from nearby neighborhoods asking how to challenge their own HOAs. Karen had tried to silence me. Instead, she'd created a spotlight. And now, for the first time in years, the power was shifting. The community, her community, was starting to turn against her. The next few days felt like living inside a storm. The kind that starts with a whisper of wind and ends with everything you own scattered across the field. The HOA office went dark, literally. When residents started asking questions, the Briarwood Estates sign out front disappeared overnight, replaced by a plain whiteboard that simply said, "Closed for internal review." Karen was hiding. But she wasn't gone. Her silence wasn't surrender, it was strategy. Lisa and I spent those days double-checking everything. We'd filed our audit request with the county, backed up every photo, every video, every document. The evidence folder on Lisa's computer was now 3 gigabytes deep, labeled neatly, time-stamped, unshakable. Still, I could feel it coming. That calm before the next hit. It came on a Thursday afternoon. I was fixing a broken gate hinge when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. A black SUV rolled up, not Karen's this time, but newer, sleeker, tinted windows. 2 men stepped out wearing business suits that didn't fit the dirt road. One of them smiled too politely and said, "Mr. Travis? We're with the county assessor's office. We'd like to conduct a brief survey of your southern property line. County officials don't drive private vehicles, and they don't wear suits to check fences." I leaned on the gate. "You got a warrant?" He hesitated. "We have authorization." He handed me a folded paper. It wasn't a warrant. It was a petition for emergency easement review, stamped received, but not approved. Behind the signature line, Karen Tyson, HOA president. Lisa came out of the house, phone already filming. "Gentlemen," she said calmly, "you are trespassing. You'll leave now." The younger one's polite smile cracked. "Ma'am, that won't be necessary." Lisa didn't blink. "Oh, it's very necessary. Sheriff's already on his way." He wasn't, but they didn't know that. They exchanged glances, muttered something about coming back with proper documentation, and drove off, tires spitting dust. As the sound faded, I felt my pulse thundering in my ears. This wasn't paperwork anymore. It was escalation. That night, the motion cameras I'd hidden in the birdhouses sent a ping to Lisa's phone at 2:17 a.m. Movement. Driveway. She shook me awake. By the time I grabbed the flashlight, the feed was already live. A figure in a hooded jacket was walking along the fence line. Then another. Two of them, flashlights dimmed, moving slow, deliberate. One stopped near the fuel tanks. The other bent down by the gate, right where I'd welded the fence after the last incident. "Got you," I whispered, reaching for my jacket. Lisa grabbed my arm. "No, Hal. Not this time. We record, we don't react." She was right. I stayed at the window, every nerve screaming to run outside, but I forced myself still. The night vision feed showed everything. The bolt cutters. The same star-patterned bootprint. They cut the fence again, then spray-painted the side of my barn. 3 letters. HOA. When they left, we had it all on camera. Faces, tags, timestamps. The next morning, we called the sheriff for real. Deputy Collins showed up, a man who'd known my family since I was a kid. He watched the footage twice, jaw tight. "This isn't vandalism," he said. "This is intimidation." He filed the report himself and said he'd forward it to the DA's office. But what he told me next made my stomach drop. "Hole, they filed a complaint against you too. Claims you're threatening board members, harassing staff, creating a hostile environment." I laughed, but it came out hollow. "So now I'm the criminal?" He sighed. "They're covering themselves. You're making noise, and people like that, they get scared. Scared people with money are the most dangerous kind." By noon, my name was trending in the local Facebook groups again, but this time it wasn't all support. Karen's camp had started spinning their own version. They said I'd staged the whole thing for attention. They said I'd endangered my neighbors. One even claimed I'd brandished a weapon during the tractor incident. The comments section turned into a battlefield. Half the town defended me. The other half called me a lunatic. Lisa wanted to delete everything and go quiet for a while. But I knew silence was exactly what they wanted. So I made a choice. That evening, I set up my tripod on the porch, hit record, and spoke directly to the camera. "My name is Holt Travis. I'm a farmer, a husband, and a citizen of this county. Everything you've seen, every letter, every act of vandalism is real. The people doing this think they can scare us into silence. But this land has been in my family for 100 years. I've weathered droughts, floods, and storms you can't imagine. You think a few fines and midnight trespassers are going to break me? Not a chance." Lisa posted it before I could change my mind. By morning, it had 1 million views. Local news picked it up. And the thumbnail, me standing in front of the barn, the spray-painted HOA, still fresh behind me, became the image that broke the story wide open. Reporters started calling. Neighbors came by to thank us. Even the sheriff's office opened a public investigation into the HOA's activities. Karen had spent weeks trying to break me. But in the end, she'd only built my platform. The breaking point had come. But it wasn't mine. It was hers. The morning after my video went viral, the air around town felt different. You could feel the shift, that invisible crack when people realized they'd been lied to. By noon, news vans had parked outside the old HOA office. Reporters in suits and sneakers were knocking on doors, chasing residents who had once whispered their complaints behind closed blinds. Lisa and I watched it all from the porch, coffee cups trembling in our hands. For the first time in months, it felt like maybe, just maybe, we weren't alone. Then came the text message. Unknown number. Emergency town meeting 3 p.m. Community Hall. Attendance mandatory. Board response. Karen was coming out of hiding. When we arrived, the hall was already packed. Old men in caps, mothers with strollers, kids sitting cross-legged on the floor. People who had never attended a single meeting were now shoulder to shoulder, buzzing with restless anger. Up front, the HOA board sat at their long table, perfectly staged papers neatly stacked, bottled water labels facing the cameras. And there she was, Karen Tyson, the woman who'd made my life a living hell. Her trademark pearl necklace gleamed under the fluorescent lights like a badge of untouchable privilege. But this time, she wasn't smiling. When she rose to speak, the murmurs died. Cameras clicked. Every lens in the room turned toward her. "Residents of Briarwood," she began, voice thin and brittle, "it has come to our attention that a certain member of this community has engaged in dangerous behavior, spreading misinformation and slandering this organization." All eyes flicked toward me. She continued, waving a folder theatrically. "These baseless accusations of corruption, intimidation, and trespassing are not only false, but deeply harmful to our community's reputation. This behavior will not be tolerated." Lisa's grip tightened around my hand. I could feel her pulse racing through her palm. Before Karen could go further, a voice from the crowd shouted, "Then explain the audit reports." Silence. Then another voice, "Yeah, where's the money, Karen?" The room erupted. Dozens of people yelling at once, waving letters, invoices, photos. The calm order she'd built for years was dissolving in front of her. Karen slammed her gavel. "Order? Order. You people don't understand the complexity of it." She didn't finish, because the doors at the back opened, and in walked Sheriff Collins with 2 county investigators in tow. You could have heard a pin drop. "Miss Tyson," the sheriff said calmly, "we're here under order of the district attorney's office. We need you to step aside for questioning regarding the HOA's financial records." Karen blinked. "This is outrageous. You can't just—" "We have a warrant," he said, lifting the document. "And we've got video evidence of 2 individuals connected to your office vandalizing Mr. Travis's property." Gasps rippled through the hall. Karen turned to the board, but no one met her eyes. One by one, they began sliding their chairs back, distancing themselves like rats abandoning a sinking ship. I stood up, not to gloat, but because I wanted her to see it. To see what truth looked like when it refused to stay quiet. "You should just left us alone," I said quietly. "This community could have been something good." Her face hardened, but her eyes flickered with something that looked a lot like fear. The sheriff gestured toward the exit. "Ma'am." She tried to hold her head high as they led her out, but the cameras caught it all. The trembling hands, the pale lips, the quiet collapse of control. Outside, as the crowd followed, sunlight poured over the street. For the first time in months, it didn't feel heavy anymore. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years were shaking hands, hugging, crying. Lisa leaned into me, whispering, "You did it." I shook my head. "No, we did it." Later that week, the county announced the official results of the audit. Over $600,000 in maintenance fees had been siphoned into shell accounts linked to Karen's consulting business. Multiple board members resigned, and the HOA charter was temporarily suspended pending full investigation. Reporters called it the Briarwood scandal. Online, people called it the HOA revolution. But for me, it was simpler. I just wanted my land back. And now, as the sun set over the repaired fence, no more spray paint, no more signs, I realized something deeper. All those years, Karen believed power came from control. But real power? It came from standing your ground when everyone tells you to bow. I turned off the porch light and looked out at the quiet fields, the wind rolling through the grass like an ocean. This time, there was no fear in it, only peace. Later that afternoon, I saw a small crowd forming near the park. A few residents were talking, holding papers, whispering in low voices. I walked over, expecting cold stares. Instead, one of them, a woman named Lisa, who'd always kept her distance, waved me over. "We're tired of her," she said quietly. "We want to know what we can do." I told them what I'd found, the illegal rule changes, the missing compliance audit, the way the HOA was operating without proper authorization. As I spoke, more people gathered. Within minutes, there were nearly 20 of us. People brought their own letters, their own violation notices. Some of them had stacks of them,